automakers into the country's global innovation network and their overseas development, said Go Ping, vice chairman of the State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission, according to the national broadcaster CCTV. There are 3 large state-owned automakers directly controlled by China's central government Dongfeng Motor Group, China FAW Group and Chang'an Automobile Company. There are also 5 major state-owned automakers controlled by municipal or provincial governments: SAIC Motor Corporation, GAC Motor Company, BAIC Motor Company, Chery Automobile Company, and Jianghuai Automobile Company. Analysts and investors believe all of the companies will likely be targeted by the new program. Market clearing will be accelerated, which will benefit those industry leaders, Sinolink Securities analysts wrote in a note. However, as the 3 major central firms are doing poorly in the electric vehicle market with complicated production lines and business, we still need to wait and see if the move will be effective. The government's move comes at a time when China's vehicle industry is struggling with intense price competition and the threat of additional tariffs from the US. In this episode of the Ally All Ears podcast, Aaron Lee, Senior Director at Ally Dealership Insurance, discusses the growing threat of cyber attacks on dealerships and the importance of staying vigilant. He shares essential tips for safeguarding against these risks and highlights the need for specialized cyber insurance coverage to protect your business. China wants to build a world-class automobile industry with global competitiveness and independent core technologies, state broadcaster CCTV reported March 29, citing an official from the state asset regulator. Cooperation between state-owned and private companies is also welcome, the official added. China has renewed a trade-in and incentive program to boost hybrid and electric vehicle sales, and banks are offering record-low interest rates to spur consumer demand. China's wholesale vehicle shipments in February rose 34% year-on-year. Title: VW Group CEO Wayne Griffiths quits, interim boss is named. Content: The head of Volkswagen Group's Seat Cupra brands, Wayne Griffiths, is stepping down. Griffiths is leaving the automaker at his own request effective immediately, Seat said in a statement March 31. Marcus Haupt, Seat's head of production and logistics, will replace Griffiths on an interim basis until a permanent successor is found, the statement added. VW said that, under Griffiths' leadership, Cupra was established as an independent brand within the VW Group and has recently become one of Europe's fastest-growing car brands. Seat brand sales were up 7.5% to 310,000 in 2024, while Cupra's volume increased 7.5% to 248,100. Operating profit increased 1.3% to €633 million. Griffiths joined VW Group's Audi brand in 1989. He worked in various sales and marketing roles at Audi and Seat, and was appointed CEO of Seat and Cupra in 2020. In this episode of the Ally All Ears podcast, Aaron Lee, Senior Director at Ally Dealership Insurance, discusses the growing threat of cyber attacks on dealerships and the importance of staying vigilant. He shares essential tips for safeguarding against these risks and highlights the need for specialized cyber insurance coverage to protect your business. Reuters contributed to this report. Title: Young technician grateful for his mentor. Content: Last December, Mikias Tedesz, a journeyman technician at Wholesale Chevrolet in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, found himself stumped by a 2020 Chevrolet Traverse that was towed to the store because it wouldn't start after its windshield was replaced. There were hundreds of diagnostic codes to consider, said Tedesz, 22. After about 3 hours, I narrowed it down to a communication issue between all of the control modules. I had a hunch, but I didn't know where to go from there. That's where John Olsted, then a technician team lead at the store and now a senior manager of technician production covering 15 Wholesale stores in Minnesota, stepped in. After discussing the problem for about 5 minutes, Olsted suggested unplugging the forward-facing camera that's mounted on the inside of the rearview mirror, part of the car's lane keep assist with lane departure warning system. The vehicle started up right away, said Tedesz, a Wholesale employee since 2021. As it turned out, the camera was damaged internally and failed, which caused all the other control modules to shut off, he said. Without John, I would have been chasing codes for hours and hours, Tedesz said. He can really help you out with those jobs where you're going around in circles, where you're doing things the way the manufacturer outlines it instead of the route you should take to get to the right answer quickly and efficiently. In this episode of the Ally All Ears podcast, Aaron Lee, Senior Director at Ally Dealership Insurance, discusses the growing threat of cyber attacks on dealerships and the importance of staying vigilant. He shares essential tips for safeguarding against these risks and highlights the need for specialized cyber insurance coverage to protect your business. This instance underscores the importance of proper training for young technicians, which bolsters retention efforts, as well as the value of a coach and mentor. With so many schematics, diagrams and codes to consider, it's easy for inexperienced technicians to go down a rabbit hole, Tedesz said. But John cuts through all the things you shouldn't be looking at, he said. He knows what codes to ignore. The comprehensive training Tedesz received from Olsted has literally paid dividends in the form of more pay, thanks to productivity improvements that enable him to turn more hours per week, he said. I believe I'm more proficient than the average 22-year-old technician because of John, he said. I don't think I'd be as far along in my career without him. Title: Unique role helps bring young technicians up to speed. Content: Several years ago, management at Wholesale Chevrolet in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, realized it had a problem in fixed operations, a wide divide between experienced and rookie technicians. To close the gap, management tapped John Olsted, a journeyman advanced diagnostic technician at the time, to fill a newly created position, technician team lead, effectively serving as a coach and mentor for young technicians. Andrew Walser, Walser Automotive Group CEO, wanted to try something different to drive improved production, revamp the traditional shop foreman role into something that fits today's day and age, Olsted said. What we're doing is actively driving technician production through technician development. Before, we were doing it backward. Olsted's role is helping to resolve a pain point that's all too familiar to many service managers: insufficient time to actively coach and develop technicians while contending with a steady stream of daily brush fires. The technician development effort began in June 2022. It was so successful that in January 2024, Olsted was promoted to Senior Manager of Technician Production. That role expanded his responsibilities to 15 Walser stores in Minnesota, which encompass about 300 technicians and approximately 300 service bays. In this episode of the Ally All Ears podcast, Aaron Lee, Senior Director at Ally Dealership Insurance, discusses the growing threat of cyber attacks on dealerships and the importance of staying vigilant. He shares essential tips for safeguarding against these risks and highlights the need for specialized cyber insurance coverage to protect your business. The Auto Group owns 26 rooftops in Minnesota and Kansas. I spend time at each store for however long I'm needed, Olsted said. I wanted this to be a boots-on-the-ground program where I could get into those service bays and work one-on-one with technicians. Management also promoted Myron Magstad, formerly the service manager at Walser Honda Burnsville, to Senior Manager, Service Process and Guest Experience, for the same stores that Olsted covers, said Pete Swenson, Senior Vice President of Operations at Walser. It's been great, Swenson said. They work as a two-man team, with John handling the production side and Myron handling the service drives. We're a relatively good-sized dealer group and we wanted consistent processes at all of our stores. Olsted spent roughly the last 15 months visiting each store, getting to know as many technicians as possible and establishing a rapport. Overall, there's been no pushback to speak of from technicians, but he said it's challenging to cover so much ground and meet with so many new people. At first, you're kind of the odd guy walking around the shop in a uniform, Olsted said. But they buy into things pretty quickly when they find out where I come from, experience-wise. They're ecstatic that there's an actual technician in this role, someone who can fix cars and knows what a day in the life of a technician is like. One of the first things Olsted does is select someone to serve as a technician team lead to manage shop production. That's typically that one technician, usually a journeyman advanced diagnostics veteran, that everyone in a shop goes to for repair advice. Then Olsted spends time with the team lead and explains how he wants shop processes set up. He typically runs a shop with a lead technician at his side for a couple weeks, which usually results in a 7 to 10% bump in production, he said. John now spends most of his time with the lead team technicians who serve as a